because that in the year 2000 the telecom law was opened up. You could at that time you could buy minutes and resell the minutes. So the monopoly of KPN was ended at that time. So everybody could become a kind of a telecom provider by buying capacity on the existing networks. Right? So we started to do that for the conferencing business and for some other B2B businesses. So I joined that company. I left Ericsson and I became we basically had our startup, became entrepreneur there.
You became like a co-founder. You got stakes in the company, or?
Yeah, I invested and became an equal partner. I didn't found it. That my friend founded it a year before, and he asked me to join. And I said, "Well, why not?
Yeah.
Sounds like a good adventure." And although I was perfectly happy at Ericsson building that, but I was just also curious, right?
Why take the risk though? Why? What was happening in your mind around that time that you decided to go into a startup environment and leaving your safe job?
I think it was too predictable. I think at that time, I think it was a combination of things. I think if you look at the Ericsson job, it was great people, intelligent people, a big challenge, but I knew what the next year would look like, right?
Yeah.
And the year after, probably. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think I had other interests. And I was just curious how that would be. Can I do that? Do I want that? So we decided, and it was also a time, of course, of a lot of I would say, positive examples, right? The year 2000, of course, that's the .com, the bubble, right? There was a lot of sort of good and bad examples at that time, but there was a lot of investments. So it felt also like a good opportunity and a good time to start doing something. We never had external funding. We had at the end we had, I think, about 6 people employed. Some partners that were developing software, but one big project we did, aside from consulting and reselling telecom minutes, was we did a complete business redesign of the RAI conference center in Amsterdam.
Because that's one of the bigger ones, I think, next to the Ziggo Dome.
At that time, the Ziggo Dome didn't exist at that time.
Oh. Yeah.
There was only RAI, right, and maybe something in Arnhem or something, and the Doelen, and there was in Utrecht the Jaarbeurs. That was it, right? But at that time, if you wanted to have a booth at a conference, you have to, for the carpet, you had to send a fax to somebody. To get some walls, you need to call. It was like completely fragmented.
Yeah.
For everything that you needed, if you need a table or water or whatever, there was always a different company, a different form, a different phone number, etc. So we did an analysis of all those suppliers and all the sort of variants of what is needed there, internet access, telephone access, etc. And we brought it all online. So we basically digitized the whole conference process, which was all analog and phone-based and fax-based, and we brought that online as a first digital representation of RAI's conference business with that company. So again, that was like a combining innovation, right? This was the first time that everybody got on the web. Most people just put a digital folder of their analog, but we started to really do transactions and be able to order things. And then when you came to the booth, the internet was there, the carpet was there, and things like that. So connecting the backends of those suppliers to a front end of the RAI. Really interesting. Difficult, because a lot of resistance, of course, in these companies, because never done that way. Why should we change? And so the normal resistance you would have in every company when you do changes, right?
So why did they eventually do it?
Well, in the end, this is always a process where you try to win over the enthusiasm of other people based on the value of such a new way of doing things. And in the end, it's often about money. If you can show them that they can create more money at less cost, then it starts to become very easy. Because these are small entrepreneurs, small business owners that, if there's one thing that small business owners often know very well, it's the bottom line. right? So if they can earn more at less cost, they don't have to understand to say yes to it. And of course, and this was driven from the RAI Congress Center, and these suppliers were supplying to RAI, and they had to sort of course, continue that business. They wanted to maintain a supplier. So in that sense, for them, this was a necessary change also to stay a supplier.
How did you guys get into, how old was the company at that point? How did you get into...
2 years or so. Yeah, that was, I think you gain the trust from the sponsor in a company like that based on the projects that you do. It starts with a small project. It starts maybe with one thing. It started with with an internet cable in a booth, right? That's where Hobby started, offering telecom data. And then say, why don't we expand this, right, to more things in the booth? So we started on our core, on our strengths. We made sure that worked, right? And then you expand. And that's what you see a lot also now today in the companies. If there's one way that startups often start, right, it's one thing that you do from start to end, make sure that works, and then expand, make it broader. Right? Don't try to solve the whole world from the start.
If you like this episode, you can check out our most recent one here. And if you haven't already, make sure you click here to subscribe and see the next one. But if you're interested in more tips and tricks, then make sure to join our Facebook group where you can find thousands of like-minded people and you get direct access and support to any business question from the entire startup funding event team.